Now for this hour, we start with Iran. According to a senior Iranian official, Tehran has reportedly asked its regional leaders, including Turkey, to prevent any military escalation by the United States. The official has also warned that Iran would strike U.S. bases in the region if it is attacked by Washington. This comes as mass demonstrations continue across Iran, with the U.S.-based human rights activists news agency reporting that 1,847 protesters have been killed so far. Just yesterday, U.S. President Donald Trump posted on his Truth Social, urging Iranians to continue protesting and take control of the state institutions. Trump has also announced that he has cancelled all meetings with Iranian officials and will not engage with Tehran until it ends what he described as the senseless killings of the protesters. Now, for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Gedalia Blum. He's a Middle East Affairs analyst, joins us live from LA. Thank you very much, Mr. Blum, for joining us once again. Good to see you. Now, as situations escalate, and it seems like Trump has, closed that door of diplomacy, what should we be focusing on, and what do you think could happen?
Well, I think closing the door on the diplomacy is actually moving closer to a solution. And I'll tell you is that the Middle East, especially when it comes to the interacting with the Western world, diplomacy has been used not as a means to come to a solution, but a weapon to use for delay tactics in order for them to continue in whichever direction that they were going to in the first place. And we see this in countless examples. And I think that it's very clear that Donald Trump is not willing to play that game. Number one, he's got 3 years left in his presidency. He's looking to create a legacy. Not only that, but he's also, at the last years of his life. I don't think he wants to even waste 2 minutes through diplomatic channels that are not going to further his goal for success and a successful legacy for his presidency. And so I think actually closing those diplomatic channels is actually what's going to create the pressure that's needed for any kind of solution, which I honestly don't think that it's going to have anything to do with the regime. The toothpaste is out of the tube, as they say. You can't push it back in. And despite the fact that we don't know the exact numbers of the people on the streets protesting against the regime, we do know that there is a significant PR campaign in support of the protesters, of the revolutionaries, against the regime, and it's time for this 47-year oppressiveness to end already. And I think that by closing these diplomatic channels is actually a sign to the people on the ground to say that we are with you, and we're not going to continue to prop up an illegitimate regime while they continue to rule over you, to kill you, and to suppress your basic human rights.
Right. As you mentioned that the legacy that Trump is trying to leave, but Iranian people at the end of the day are not the voters that he's seeking to, right? So why do you think he's prioritizing this instead of, the domestic politics such as the ICE shootings and ICE protests against ICE agents, ICE immigration crackdown, and Jeffrey Epstein, so many cases that could get Trump more voting? What do you think, what's his motive here?
I mean, I think his motive is not for necessarily his own personal position in the politic of domestic politics in the United States. I think that he sees himself as a world leader, and with a world leader, he understands that, especially in the recent.
We might have lost our guest while we check the connection. We'll be moving on to our next read. Thank you very much, Mr. Blum, for sharing that insight once again. Now we have a breaking news. The Indian embassy in Tehran has issued a fresh advisory for all Indian nationals in Iran. Citizens, including students, pilgrims, tourists, and business travelers, are being urged to leave the country by any available means. including commercial flights, amid the evolving situation in Iran. The embassy has asked everyone to exercise caution, avoid protests, and stay updated through local media. All travel and identity documents should be kept handy. Now we move the focus back on to Iran. Iranian authorities have sentenced 26-year-old protester Irfan Soltani to death, a move rights groups say could lead to the first execution linked to the latest wave of anti-Khamenei protests. Soltani is an ordinary citizen from Fardis, near Tehran, with no leadership role in the demonstrations. He was arrested earlier this month during a street protest and charged with waging war against God, a capital offense under Iranian law. According to activists, he was denied access to a lawyer and put through a rushed judicial process. His family has been told the sentence could be carried out at any time. The case has sparked international concern, with rights groups warning it may set a precedent for more death sentences as unrest continues across Iran. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Mr. Gedalia Blum. He's a Middle East Affairs analyst, joins us live from Eli. Thank you very much, Mr. Blum, for staying with us. Now, looking at this, can you tell us a little bit about this particular individual who's put into death sentence by Iranian government?
I mean, I think it's symbolic. I think it's symbolic that the Iranian regime understands that these protests are decentralized. There's no leadership, there's no infrastructure, there's no funding, there's no outside influence, as much as they would like to say that it's America and Israel influenced. This was grassroots. This was a response to their complete and utter malpractice in running a state. And I think that this execution of this individual with no standing is very illustrative of the way that the regime actually operates. And the fact that they continue to operate this in the face of the world with whose eyes are all on Iran, I think it's very telling. And I think this goes back to why President Trump is ended all diplomatic channels, is because this is who they really are. They really believe that they are executing people in protecting God's image. And this is an evil. This is an evil in this world that is not only being branched out through their proxies in Hezbollah, the Houthis, Hamas, but it's a terror that's creating so much fear on the ground in Iran.
Mr. Blum, when you say they, you mean the regime, right? You're differentiating between the regime and the people.
No, absolutely. The people are the victims. The regime. This is how 40,000 IRGC members could control a whole country. Is not through brute force, but through brute fear. And what they do is they take somebody off the street and they publicize that this is just an ordinary person and that he stood up against the regime. And now we're going to set up the cranes and hang him in public view and let him sit there for a number of days so everybody can understand what happens to you as a normal person when you speak out against the regime. And when they put that level of fear into people, that's how they keep control, and that's what they're trying to maintain, that level of control. But like I said before, the toothpaste is already out of the tube. There's no pushing it back. The people on the ground are so large in numbers that they don't feel that they are going to be individually isolated and picked out. Instead, but they feel that they do have this like kind of mob strength, where you have anonymity, but you do have the strength in numbers to walk down the streets in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people at the same time.
Right. Thank you for highlighting that. And Mr. Blum, as you also highlighted that the Iranian government blames outsiders instead of blaming themselves for the oppression of the people over there. They blame Israel. They blame U.S. How is this news covered in Israel, and how does Israeli government sees Iranian regime continuously pointing fingers at themselves for their own mistake outsiders, you know?
I mean, listen, we see it as obviously a falsity, almost laughable. It's almost satirical that they're sitting there executing their own people, shooting them in the eye, shooting them in the face on purpose in order to create these scars and to kill them. And then they turn around and say that this is some sort of like Mossad conspiracy. We've seen this forever, and we see this through all fascists and all dictatorships and all Islamist rulers who are not free societies, but fear societies who oppress their own people. And the only way for their people to stay with them is for these leaders to create an enemy from outside. And when you create an enemy from outside, you could always blame all the hardships of the people that they're responsible for on somebody external. And so this is something that we've heard for the last 47 years. We hear it from many other nations. North Korea, we heard it from Venezuela. We still hear it from Venezuela. We hear it from these fear societies that they need to have an enemy outside to blame. And we know this game, and so nobody takes their rhetoric seriously. And I don't think, not Israelis, not Iranians. Everybody, it's very clear what they're doing, and they're desperate. And this accusation of external players is just a very clear illustration of their desperation.
And Mr. Blum, you know, we saw a few years ago the Mahsa Amini protest, which led to some kind of changing in the women's head coverings, scarves, and hijab laws that were forcefully applied to Iranian people in Iran. Do you think that the death penalty of Mr. Erfan Soltani would have a similar effect? And, you know, just maybe Iranian government will just maybe change a little bit rules here and there, and then just wait for this protest to fizzle out. What's the change? What's the difference if that were to happen? The same thing that was to happen today regarding this protest that's ongoing, and then the difference with Mahsa Amini effect from previous protest which we saw in Iran. It was also huge.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a very significant difference between these two protests. The previous one that you mentioned,
yes,
was about human rights issues, in which everybody, of course, is very much attuned to and wants to see human rights for their fellow man. On the other side of it, though, is that fear, that level of fear that the government puts into people, that nobody wanted to come en masse onto the streets and put themselves on the line and becoming the next victim. What's different here is the economic variable, which is what actually triggered these protests, which is the complete mismanagement of the currency, of water management, of energy, of all these different, they converged. And all of a sudden now we have the university students are the ones that actually triggered and joined in on this ideological protest. So I see this as much different. I don't see going back to this, especially with the Iranian regime's surveillance state, in which they are monitoring every single person as much as they can who's on the street. And I think that these people understand that once they showed their face, once the women showed their hair, that they will always be some sort of digital file somewhere in the IRGC, and it's only a matter of time till somebody comes and knocks on their door at 3 o'clock in the morning. And they would rather die on the streets than not be able to sleep at night under a fear society, thinking that they were going to be dragged out to be tortured and killed. And especially when it comes to generational, they don't want to see that their children are also in that situation.
Right. And lastly, do you know, not do you know, but like our generation or my generation, we don't have the image of Iran other than this current regime. Do you think that if this regime was to fall over, how will that change or liberate their image? And how do you think this will be affecting the image of Iran that a lot of people right now have around the world?
That's the $1 million question, because we all see that, first of all, Iran is a very diverse region. It's a very diverse country. There's people from different ethnicities, different religions, different cultures, different values, all the way from those who support the Islamic regime to those who are looking to separate themselves from the state of Iran. So the day after, how Iran is going to be seen around the world is really depending on if those who can converge around the fall of the regime, if they could actually sit down and talk about the day after, and come to some sort of peaceful transition in which all parties can maintain some sort of sovereignty within a state, I think that the future will be free. I'm not sure how exactly free. We are talking about the Middle East. We're not talking about the United States. There are cultural differences, but overall, it's a big question. I'm not willing to answer it because whatever I answer is going to be wrong. But I am speaking to a lot of people who are at the levels of power around Iran, and I'm pushing them as much as I can to end the conflict within the opposition, because there's significant conflict, and so it's up to the Iranian people how the world is going to see them by the way that they transition from this oppressive regime to whatever it is going to come forward. It's either going to be a free society or it's going to be what we see today in Syria, which Syria doesn't really exist as a single entity. It's broken up into different regions, controlled by different people, and so we might actually see that. I have no idea.
With that, I would like to thank Mr. Gedalia Bublam for joining us as a Middle East Affairs analyst from ELI. Thank you very much. Now we move to focus on to Europe. Danish Defense Minister Troy